No technical difficulties here on this episode of Kicking Out at 2. I'm Dave Rosenbluth, and we are back after WrestleMania season, after WrestleMania 41 here with a special episode. Want to apologize to all of you that were looking forward to the WrestleMania 6 recap. Unfortunately, my software was not cooperating with me, and due to the time constraints that I had at the time to record, I was unable to get things up and running in time. I had my real life job that got in the way, unfortunately. Couldn't take time off, but I got everything worked out. All the kinks are worked out, and we are ready to go for this Spring Stampede 2000 recap. I'm also going to talk about my thoughts on WrestleMania 41, the entire weekend that just took place. Get that all squared away for all of you. And, you know, we're coming off a pretty controversial weekend in WWE amongst a lot of fans, and I'll get into all of that shortly. As far as the WrestleMania 6 recap goes, you guys voted for it and smashed it in the polls, and I want to thank you all for doing that. And I didn't forget that, and I won't forget that next year, because next year, that's on the schedule, WrestleMania season, WrestleMania 6 recap for all of you. So you might have to wait a year, but it's going to happen. I'm going to follow through with what you guys put out there on the polls. So I want to thank you for all that. And this here, Spring Stampede 2000, another poll winner that you guys selected, which I was really surprised with because, quite frankly, the last time I recapped a WCW pay-per-view, which was WCW Uncensored, it was a dead tie between that and ECW Living Dangerously 2000, and Dennis broke the tie. We thought we'd change it up a bit, and we didn't have great success with it. The numbers were good on Podbean, so if you want to go back and listen to it, you can find it on Podbean, as well as all the other great shows from Kicking Out at 2. Cool Truth with AC, who just did a recent resurgence of WrestleMania predictions. You can find that up in the links as well. I didn't think that this was going to win the polls, but it did, and I'll get to Spring Stampede shortly. But let me share with you my thoughts on WrestleMania weekend. WrestleMania 41 just took place in Las Vegas this past weekend. We are in the post-WrestleMania season now, as things start to reshift and reshape in the spring, going into the spring and summer of 2025. First thing I want to discuss is the Hall of Fame. I didn't catch the Hall of Fame live because, number one, I was not staying up till 1 o'clock in the morning to watch this Hall of Fame, okay? Even though I wanted to see Lex Luger's induction, I was not staying up. I ended up watching clips. I ended up watching certain speeches the next day. I've not watched the whole show, but I watched a good portion of the show. I like the fact that they changed it up from being in an arena to like a theater setting, a more intimate setting. It gives it a more prestigious ceremonial feel to it, rather than it being a show in the middle of an arena, like they have done the past few years following the live SmackDown. The time, though, was pretty brutal for those that stayed up to watch, going 3 hours. So that show ended at around 4 o'clock in the morning, local here on the East Coast. So from what I watched with the Hall of Fame ceremony itself, I liked the format. McAfee and Michael Cole hosting, I thought they did a really great job. Keeping it to like 4 to 5 inductees, I thought worked. As far as speeches go, Luger's speech, him being able to walk on stage with some assistance, but he got up and he walked to the podium and he stood the entire time on the podium. I thought that was really cool, really special. A guy who's gone from rags to riches and back to rags. He's got a remarkable story that I thought was deserving of sharing, and you know, his contributions in the industry do not go unnoticed. I was a big Luger guy, NWA, in my younger years. He was the NWA's equivalent to Hulk Hogan, but without the charisma, without the over the top personality. He had the body, he had the look. Crowd was behind him, but he didn't quite have that Hulk Hogan it factor. But I loved him. I loved watching Luger. As a horseman, as a babyface, as a heel, Luger was one of my guys back in the day. And to see him get this recognition now, I thought was very well deserved. I know he's fallen on some hard times in more recent years, starting with the death of Miss Elizabeth, who was his then girlfriend at the time. Luger has publicly admitted to being a contributing factor to her downfall that eventually led to her death and her passing. And he has taken on a new lease on life in the last 15 or so years, being paralyzed and now working with DDP to help gain some mobility back. I thought that was a tremendous story. Owning his place in all the things that he's done in the past, his stuff with Miss Elizabeth, his drug and alcohol abuse. For it to come full circle now, people will shit on it and say, "Oh, well, he killed Miss Elizabeth." I don't really fucking care what you think. He owned it. He owned his place in her in what took place in that relationship, as well as what took place with her passing, and he has reshaped his life. Very religious man, and has not taken life for granted. And you could tell in his speech and then the things that he was saying that rings true. So I really enjoyed his speech. The immortal moments with CM Punk inducting the Bret Hart-Steve Austin Hall of Fame match from WrestleMania 13. I thought that was well done, short, sweet, to the point. Didn't have to go crazy with it. The statue with half of Bret's face and half of Austin's face, I thought that was pretty cool. Which, by the way, you can find that on WWEshop.com for a whopping $1,500 if you want that as part of your wrestling memorabilia collection. Yeah, I thought that was well done. Didn't go too long. But one thing that did go pretty long, which I didn't have a problem with, but a lot of wrestling fans did, was Triple H's Hall of Fame induction speech. Went 1 hour and 8 minutes. And, there's been other speeches that have gone on too long. Ric Flair had one year. A lot of guys have gone, over 40 minutes or so, and people don't complain about it. But Triple H goes just shy of an hour, and everyone's losing their minds over it. And then, of course, they attach the fact that he's an executive in the company and he booked himself to be put in this position. And it's not even worth mentioning. I don't even know why I just mentioned it, but it's not even worth mentioning. It's dumb stuff. I enjoyed the speech, and there are others that did too. He hit on every high point of his career, from his how he started to the guys that mentored him, like Arn Anderson and Ric Flair and Regal, Terry Taylor, his time in the Clique with Shawn and X-Pac and Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, the DX stuff, Evolution, his relationship with Stephanie, even name dropping Vince. And he even said, this is a hard topic to really avoid, and he's been skirting around it, but nobody would be there if it wasn't for Vince. And I thought that the way he mentioned Vince's name was very well done. It was very classy. He mentioned it was a complicated relationship that he had with Vince, but that he loved him. Vince taught him a lot and wouldn't be where he is currently without Vince's help and guidance in getting him there and helping him run this company. So I thought that was very well done. It got a warm reception. I don't think that it was in poor taste, but there are people out there that will trash it because of the circumstances surrounding Vince's exit from the company. And that's a whole nother discussion for a whole nother day that I'm not going to get into. But at 1 hour and 8 minutes, it didn't feel like it dragged at all whatsoever. And I just hope that the one thing I would tweak with this Hall of Fame concept is I like the amount of inductees, but it needs to be on its own separate night. I would put it on a Thursday, or I've even said, make it a matinee show. Do Saturday afternoon. And move the NXT show to Thursday. NXT has their main show on Tuesday. Move the Stand and Deliver special to Thursday, and then Saturday morning they can do the Hall of Fame before WrestleMania Saturday, something like that. Or maybe WrestleMania or maybe the Hall of Fame goes to a Thursday, and you keep the Stand and Deliver show on Saturday as a matinee show. Who knows? But it needs its own night, because I think it doesn't do it justice. And it's an opportunity for the company to honor those that have obviously paved the way. It's very cliche to say it, but and at times it feels like they're rushing through it because everyone's got to get up early for the show the next day, Whereas if they do it on Thursday, you have SmackDown, but you don't have the big WrestleMania production that you have to prepare for with rehearsals and things like that. So I think moving it to Thursday, keeping it in a small, intimate theater, okay, and giving a prestigious ceremonial feel, I think would help the concept in the long run. 4 to 5 inductees tops, and just leave it at that. So as far as NXT Stand and Deliver goes, I caught some of it. Didn't get a chance to catch all of it, but I caught the main event with Obafemi retaining the NXT Championship over Trick Williams and Javon Evans. I'll tell you, I'm just going to say this right now, and I'll elaborate on it further as I talk about this WrestleMania weekend, but this was the weekend of triple threats, and this match started it off. Those three guys went to war. They tore the house down, and kudos to them. I don't watch a lot of NXT. I catch clips. I was present in the building when Trick Williams won at Deadline a couple years ago and won an opportunity to face the NXT champion. And the pop he got for his entrance and then for eventually winning the match in like the 11th hour was unbelievable. And he's going to be a big star in the main roster. And I think we're gearing up pretty soon for his arrival onto the main roster. I just hope that there's a serious plan for him, because like a lot of other talents that have been brought up to NXT, they get put up there and they get lost in the shuffle, or they get treated like everybody else on the roster. Javon Evans, I don't know a whole lot about him, but he seems to have impressed fans as well as management with his time on screen. The stuff he's done with Ethan Page, I think, was one of those turning points for him, where you saw a little bit of seriousness out of his character, and he definitely brought it. He's got a bright future, and I think keeping him on NXT will help further develop him. And then there's the champ, Obafemi, who's a monster. He is what the old regime would look at as a main event performer. And I think he eventually, once he makes it up to the main roster, you're going to see him mixing up with the likes of Braun Breaker, a Jacob Fatu, a Braun Strowman, real big brutes. And you're going to see what everyone's been seeing in NXT when it comes to what he brings to the table. So that match cooked. It was a banger. I'm going to try not to use too many of these pro wrestling cliches out there, but it was a banger. These guys smashed it, and they really set the tone for the weekend when it came to triple threat matches, and I'll get into that later. Let's talk about WrestleMania Night 1. WrestleMania Night 1 to me, while I take a sip of my strawberry watermelon Zoa energy drink. I'll get into that fella as well shortly. All right, WrestleMania Night 1. Oh, no, before I get into that, before WrestleMania Night 1 took place, there was a groundbreaking announcement that the WWE and TKO have acquired AAA's wrestling promotion out of Mexico. We saw Triple H on the Countdown show with AAA executives, as well as other Mexican stars like Andrade, Stephanie Vaquer, Legado de Fantasma, Penta, Rey Fénix, Rey Mysterio, LW, the rest of the LWO. Huge news. And this is now, we're starting to see Triple H's vision that we were in the middle of before COVID hit, where he's trying to create avenues and territories globally, and Mexico being one of them. Now, there's been rumors that AAA will be rebranded as NXT Mexico, and it will be a feeder system for Mexican talent to come into WWE. I don't know what the goal is, but obviously, there's the WWE wants to further establish the lucha libre Mexican wrestling culture into mainstream pro wrestling in WWE, and slapping their name on that promotion, or if they just keep it as AAA, I think is part of that process. I would imagine that we'll see guys like, the LWO crew, Rey Mysterio, Fénix, Penta, Legado de Fantasma, Andrade, all those Mexican stars. I'm sure we will see them appear as part of AAA, or as a part of NXT Mexico, whatever they're going to refer to it as well as we'll see some of those stars like Vikingo, who made an appearance at WrestleMania in the El Grande Americano Rey Fénix match, which I'll get into a little bit. Maybe we'll see the return of Alberto Del Rio or Alberto El Patron. There's plenty of talents over in Mexico as part of the AAA promotion that will, I don't doubt, will be a part of WWE programming moving forward. They announced this big Worlds Collide event in Los Angeles at the Kia Forum with NXT and with AAA. I would imagine with the working relationship WWE has with TNA, that we'll see some of those talents part of this as well, because there are some Mexican talents that wrestle for TNA. So it's very exciting news. Everyone's looking at it like, oh, it's a monopoly. They're taking over. I look at it as like Triple H is creating a global territory system where everything centers around WWE, and all these other promotions work with WWE, whether they're acquired by them or they have just a partnership with them. But that these are territories that WWE looks at for future talent, and for those territories to also acquire some of the talents that WWE is working. So it gives talent an opportunity that aren't seen on WWE programming as much to go work somewhere else and still be under the WWE umbrella. So I think it's a good thing for wrestling. This is definitely something that the old regime wouldn't do, the Vince McMahon regime, and I'm loving it. So it was a cool moment to see, and I'm really excited to see what the future holds for this acquisition of AAA through WWE and TKO. Nothing but good things, in my opinion. So time will tell. As far as WrestleMania Saturday goes, I'll be honest with you. WrestleMania Saturday was very underwhelming, in my opinion, up until the main event. Okay, Jey Uso Gunther, I thought was a good opener. I didn't expect the tap out finish from Gunther, like almost immediately after Jey put him in that sleeper. I was kind of hoping that Gunther was going to hold on for a little longer, but I was pleased with the match. It wasn't anything extraordinarily different from the other two matches that they've had, or the other two, maybe three matches they had. They had one on Saturday night's main event. I think they had one on Raw as well. Anyhow, they've wrestled before. And this match, like I said, wasn't too different from the others, but there was little things that helped evolve their story. Like Gunther was actually trying to cheat to win, which I thought was pretty interesting. And Jey had a little bit more of a mean streak. He was still doing his usual stuff, but you saw a little bit more of an aggressive side in his character. And when he made Gunther tap, it all came back full circle after Gunther had attacked Jimmy Uso and left him bloody. The finish made sense from that standpoint, but Gunther tapping out after 5, 6, 7 seconds, it didn't resonate with me. But it threw me for a loop. But I was happy to see Jey win. He's the hot hand, and I think right now, especially with Cena as the champion, and I'll get into that shortly, they have a strong baby face to represent them as a champion that's going to carry the load for them, especially with Cena working limited dates on this retirement tour now as the champion. So congrats to Jey. I thought it was really cool and a fun way to open WrestleMania. And then the card, I would say, kind of dipped because you had New Day and the War Raiders for the World Tag Team titles. 2 weeks of TV build, they put this match on the card, but meanwhile, for months, they've been investing time in the SmackDown Tag Team division with the Street Profits, DIY, Motor City Machine Guns, Pretty Deadly, even the Garzas, the Legado de Fantasma. You've been investing all this time in these guys, and they don't even make the WrestleMania card, okay? Where they've been getting consistent buildup of their tag team issues and in that division. And you get 2 weeks of New Day and the War Raiders, and the New Day win the titles. Nobody cared for this match, and that's myself included. And there's nothing wrong with them as talented individuals. All four of them are. But 2 weeks of TV build, in my opinion, it just didn't sit with me. And I just thought, I was really scratching my head. I was like, why wouldn't they put Street Profits, Motor City Machine Guns, DIY, and maybe even those other two teams in some sort of multi-man match, maybe even a ladder match? For whatever reason, they decided not to do it. They went with this. New Day wins. They had another, notch on their belt to their tag team resume, but nobody really cared for it. The next match that kind of threw me for a surprise that I actually thought was her best match since she's wrestled ever, and that includes AEW, was the Jade Naomi match. Wasn't bad. There were some clunky spots in the match, but it was starting to pick up towards the end, and I thought the right person won with Jade defeating Naomi. It surprised me at how good it was. Okay, and it shows that Jade being away, she's improved her in-ring skills, and she's going to continue to improve, I feel like. I know that she's not everyone's favorite wrestler, but she's got a look and a presentation to her that they want to capitalize on, and they think that she's got star quality, and they're investing serious time in her by filming this angle and having her go away and train and work on her craft to get to this point. And it was a solid match between the two of them. They got a decent amount of time, and I can't complain. The counter with the electric chair turned into a powerbomb spot from Jade on the Naomi. I thought was pretty clever, and then it turned into that. I forget what they call that, her finisher. But anyways, long story short, wasn't a bad match. Wasn't great, but it wasn't bad either. And it was a good showing between both of them. And I don't think it's over between them yet. I hope it's not, because I think there's more to unravel with this storyline of Naomi attacking Jade. And I think it's got something to do with Bianca, obviously. And we'll get to that later. Okay. Jacob Fatu defeating LA Knight for the United States Championship. I thought these guys brought it. I thought it was a good match. Crowd was into it. And Jacob Fatu winning, I have no issues with it. I didn't think he was going to win. I picked LA Knight. And but he won. He's the champion, and I look forward to seeing what he's going to do as the United States champion. There's that lingering issue with Solo and Tama Tonga and kind of Jacob separating himself from them. I would imagine that's going to continue, especially now with Jacob as the United States champion. So we'll see how that develops. Solo came out for his entrance, but then stayed in the back. I could have sworn we were going to see an appearance by Solo and Tama to try to help Jacob win, and then it backfires and LA Knight keeps the title, but we didn't. And so that was my first, I believe that was my, what was it? No, that was my second loss of the night, because I had Jay winning, I had the War Raiders winning, but New Day won, so I was 1-1 there. Then I was 2-1 with Jade beating Naomi, and then I became 2-2 with LA Knight losing to Jacob Fatu. But yeah, the match was good. I liked it, and crowd was into it, but at the same time they weren't. Like most of the other matches on this show. It felt like, I don't know. It's like something was missing. I don't know what it was, but like I feel like that crowd was just, it was like they were waiting for something monumental to take place for them to have a WrestleMania-like reaction as an audience. I don't know. It felt very underwhelming. Like nothing groundbreaking took place, but at the same time, nothing terrible took place in these matches either. El Grande Americano and Rey Fenix. It was on the kickoff show and after the AAA acquisition announcement that Rey Mysterio announced that due to an injury that he suffered on SmackDown Friday night that he wasn't going to be a part of the match. He was not medically cleared to compete. They announced that Rey Fenix was going to take his place. Good match overall. I thought that it felt rushed, I will say. And that's why some of these other matches I too thought felt rushed as well. With the exception of Jay and Gunther, I felt that the matches prior, including this one, were rushed, and they could have been given more time. I know that the entrances kind of take up some time a little bit, but I just felt like things were really starting to kick into high gear with Phoenix and El Grande Americano, and then the finish took place. And I wasn't mad at the finish, because I'm kind of digging this modern day, Midnight Rider, El Grande Americano mask angle, which eventually will be revealed to be Chad Gable, and it will, it'll get a big pop, and et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, it wasn't a bad match. They were really starting to kick things into high gear, and then the match ended. So I just expected more. I don't know. I expected more from a lot of these matches. This is WrestleMania, and I felt like it felt like it was Raw in a big stadium, commercial free. Like it was an episode of Raw with matches in a big stadium. That's how most of these matches felt, with the exception of Jay and Gunther. That had WrestleMania quality to it. But the others, that's what it felt like. Didn't feel like a WrestleMania. You slap the WrestleMania logo on it, and put it in a stadium, but if that crowd isn't into it, and for whatever reason the performers are not delivering a quality performance that the fans expect, then people are going to feel underwhelmed. Now, I'm not saying that they didn't deliver in terms of performance. The matches were good, but there wasn't like great WrestleMania matches or moments on this card, and especially this night. Charlotte and Tiffy, women's world title, women's WWE Women's Championship. Tiffy winning. I had Charlotte winning, and I didn't expect that. I thought that they were gonna. I've kind of soured on the Tiffany Stratton experience. I'll be honest with you. I didn't think it was. I thought she peaked once she cashed in the Money in the Bank, and then people didn't really seem to care for her. Now I know that they have kind of worked in some elements of their real life backstage frustrations with each other into this rivalry, and it's kind of juiced it up a little bit. Which you can tell in the match, because you can see Charlotte taking some very clear elbow shots with her. They were pretty snug with each other, and it appeared at times like they weren't really cooperating with each other. But it didn't make for a bad match. It was a good match, but again, it just wasn't great. It just didn't feel great. There was just a feeling of very underwhelming from these matches, and. Like I said, good match, not great. Didn't expect Tiffy to win, but I'm glad that she did. Hopefully there's some sort of reshift or reset for her, because I feel her as champion. I feel like people need to care about her more, and I don't think I don't think she's not there yet. In my opinion, and she's a talented performer with somebody with 3 years in the business. She's very talented, but I just don't think she's there at the upper tippy top with the likes of Charlotte and some of the other girls, like even a Becky Lynch. But, she'll get there. And then we get the main event. Triple threat, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, CM Punk. Outstanding main event. That was WrestleMania quality. Delivering unbelievable moments in that match. Call back to, Rollins and Reigns, their issues in the Shield. With teasing the Shield powerbomb through the table, only for Roman to put both of them through the announce tables. Punk having Heyman in his corner and Living Color, his entrance. Rollins' entrance with the flamethrower. Punk's entrance with the video with his old theme song, This Fire Burns, from Killswitch Engage. I thought everything was well done from start to finish. These guys just killed it out there. They proved why they deserve to have the WrestleMania main event. And I wasn't a proponent of them getting the main event. I wanted the girls, the girls triple threat title match as the main event, because I thought that had potential. And I'll get into that in a minute. But these three guys delivered. And then the finish at the end with Heyman turning on Punk and then turning on Roman and then aligning with Rollins. In the beginning, I thought it was the obvious route. Because a lot of people said, Rollins is going to win and he's going to align with Heyman. And I thought, well, that's too easy. But the way they got there, I was satisfied with the outcome. And the real intrigue for me is not so much Heyman helping Rollins to win, but what does Rollins benefit from aligning with Heyman? Okay? Now, you might say as you're listening to this, well, Paul Heyman's character, is somewhat of a politician. He's got a little bit of stroke, and he was a big part of Roman Reigns' presentation, how Roman Reigns' character elevated. And no doubt, I don't think he's going. I think he's going to elevate Seth to another level, because I think Rollins, with this, with the current character that he had, portrayed, he kind of peaked. So now with this involvement with Heyman, the months leading up to this with Rollins, his issues with Punk, and then his issues with Roman, and how, he feels like the odd man out and the third wheel, and having Heyman in his corner is going to help him. And I think I think everything that has taken place with Rollins in the last 6 months or so, leading up to this point, has all made sense. And maybe I didn't see the outcome here with him and Heyman, because the whole favor thing was a big part of the buildup with Punk and Roman and this favor from Survivor Series. But now it all makes sense. It makes sense why Seth Rollins would align with Paul Heyman. Rollins was one that tried to do the right thing for other people and sacrificed himself for others, and look where that got him. The audience welcoming Punk back to WWE after what Punk did to the company and did to others in the company on his way out the door over a decade ago. Rollins kind of sharing his feelings on that, as well as Roman Reigns and his reign of terror with the bloodline and what, he did to Rollins throughout that time period, which really is a response to what Rollins did to him in 2014, breaking up the Shield. So much meat on the bone. Heyman's, involvement with all three of these guys. It was an awesome, awesome main event that I was like, man, like that main event saved the show. Saved night one, in my opinion. And then we move on to night two. And that momentum kind of carried into night two because these girls, they killed it. Io Sky retaining her women's championship over Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair. They killed it. It's in the discussion. It's on. It could be on the Mount Rushmore of WrestleMania openers. I know that I had a Mount Rushmore WrestleMania opener show a few years ago. I might be pulling one of those off, and I might be putting Io Sky, Rhea Ripley, and Bianca Belair on that Mount Rushmore because they killed it. Triple threat. Again, this weekend, the weekend of triple threats. That carried over and continued with the main event from Saturday and the opener from Sunday. The best matches on the card, on all those cards, the entire weekend. I would like to see more from Bianca and Rhea in a singles role now that Io is the champion. But, I was happy that Io won. She was another one that was the third wheel, even as the champ, and the focus was really on Bianca and Rhea. And they designed it that way. Like, they even mentioned it in commentary. It was part of the build-up. But to see her get that win, the finish at the end when Bianca did the KOD, she had Rhea hooked, and then the over-the-moonsault from Io to pin Bianca and end her WrestleMania undefeated streak. Man, that crowd went wild. And I was like, oh, man. Like, that's the kind of energy I wanted from night one from some of these matches. Jay and Gunther kind of brought that, but at the same time, some of these other matches, I was hoping for that kind of energy with LA Knight and Fatu, even the girls with Charlotte and Tiffy, just didn't get that. But those three, they brought that energy, and whoo, man, it was awesome. Moving on, Drew McIntyre, Damian Priest, going into this match. Wasn't entirely thrilled with the pairing. I thought Drew deserved better for WrestleMania, considering the year he had with CM Punk. But these two brought it. The Sin City Street Fight, they brought it. They were very physical with each other, and Drew winning was the right outcome. Interested to see what Drew goes moving forward. Same thing with Priest. Both guys just they brought it in that match, and they continued that momentum of intensity for WrestleMania and delivering WrestleMania quality performances. So yeah, I enjoyed the match as well. Fatal 4-way, Dominic Mysterio winning the Intercontinental Championship over Penta, Braun Breaker, and Finn Balor. I didn't see that coming. I'll be honest with you. I had Breaker retaining, but man, the pop he got for his work in the ring, the teasing of the issues between him and Balor with Judgment Day. Dominic Mysterio, I think, is a babyface in the making. As hated as he has been the last, almost 3 years now as part of Judgment Day, for whatever reason, this audience was all behind Dominic Mysterio, and even it carried over into last night's Raw, which I'll get into in a little bit. They were just all about Dom, and it was a fantastic match. Car crash, Carlito interfering, and Breaker spearing him through the announcer's table. Balor and Penta delivering the quality performances they deliver. This was a really fun car crash match, and just continued to build that momentum of WrestleMania performances. And I was like, third match in, I was like, man, these guys are lapping night one right now. I mean, just lapping night one. And it showed with this 4-way. When he got the win, I was like, man, like the crowd popped huge for that win. Huge. They were booing him when he came out. And then for whatever reason, he just, I don't know, they got behind him. And I think that was like a litmus test for them where they were like, all right, let's see what he does as a babyface. Let's see if we can explore this. And I think eventually, in the next few months, I think we'll see Dominic Mysterio as one of the biggest babyfaces in WWE out of all the roster. Moving on, Randy Orton's open challenge turned into I Believe in Joe Hendry. Joe Hendry, TNA World Champion Joe Hendry, the meme wrestler, answers Randy Orton's open challenge. I didn't have many expectations for this match. I was kind of hoping we'd get a return of the Wyatt Six. Maybe they would attack Randy and kind of get their things in motion, with their pending return to television. I was hoping maybe it was going to be like a callback to Orton's feud with the late Bray Wyatt, their spiritual leader. And maybe it was going to keep them occupied with Randy, now that Kevin Owens is kind of out of the picture with his injury. A lot of people thought Rusev or Aleister Black. We would see Rusev return on Monday night. Get to that later. But yeah, I had no problem with it. It was fun. Joe Hendry did the bit where he turns around and the camera pans to him, and then out of nowhere, RKO, boom, Randy Orton gets the win. It was a fun little let me up on the show, and I didn't have any problem with it. People are like, oh, they buried TNA, they buried Joe Hendry. Shut up. Shut the fuck up. You people don't know what you're talking about. Just shut the fuck up. Seriously, be a fan. Stay in your lane. Be a fan. If you don't like it, don't watch it. Otherwise, shut the fuck up. Man. Next up. AJ Styles, Logan Paul. Expected this to be a banger, and while it wasn't a bad match, it wasn't the match I expected. The inclusion of Karrion Kross getting involved with his stuff going on with AJ, that got a pretty big pop. Kross being a local hometown boy in Las Vegas. But, yeah, I expected a lot more from these two, and for whatever reason, it didn't come to fruition. I was hoping, I'll be honest with you, the build to this match sucked. I mean, I think they relied on the fact that these two are great performers and great athletes, and that they were going to wow the crowds, the crowd at WrestleMania with their athletic ability, and we didn't get that. They had very little time to build up their match. It was and the reasons behind it just didn't really match up for me. There really wasn't a reason given behind it, other than the fact that, like, Logan Paul, is a cocky, arrogant prick, and AJ Styles wanted to put him in his place and do it at WrestleMania. Like, that to me was just like, I needed more reasons to sink my teeth into this storyline. I wasn't just going to rely on the match. I thought the match was going to deliver, and it just, to me, it didn't. And it's no fault of the talent of their own. They put on a good match. My expectations were just a little bit higher, and maybe that's my fault. Moving on, Becky Lynch returning to be Lyra Valkyrie's partner to win the Women's Tag Team Championship over Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. Okay, nice little surprise return. I was kind of hoping we would get Becky to turn on Lyra, and we get the big time Bex character, but we would eventually see that the next night on Raw, and I'll elaborate on that shortly because I am going to talk about Monday Night Raw. But yeah, nothing to write home about here. This was designed to spotlight Becky and her return, and surprisingly enough, this is the second time she has made a return to the company and won a championship in that very same stadium in Las Vegas. The last being SummerSlam 2021 when she beat Bianca Belair for the Women's Championship. So kind of a little full circle moment there. And then before we get to the main event, we get Stone Cold Steve Austin coming out to announce the attendance on his ATV. If you go on social media, you'll see that he missed his cue getting up the ramp, and that's why it took him so long to get down the ramp on the ATV, only for him to circle the ring and crash into the barricade and knock a lady over, which I've seen the footage. This lady, I think, is going for a big cash grab because her reaction was so delayed when she fell back, and you can see Nick Khan playing Damage Control, hoping that, she doesn't sue. Me personally, just give me, next couple of years, I just want to go to WrestleMania. Sit front row, or, I'm, in that general area. Give me a couple tickets, WrestleMania, Hall of Fame, the Fan Access Convention, shit like that. That's all I care about. I don't want any money. I just want, a chance to go to WrestleMania and not have to, rob Peter to pay Paul to get there. Okay? So we'll probably see this woman front row at WrestleMania next year, or they'll give her own fucking entrance for all we know. But yeah, Austin comes out, announces the attendance for both nights, And it felt like it was kind of beneath him to do that. I was hoping for an Austin cameo in the main event, which brings us to Cody Rhodes, John Cena. There's a mixed bag with this one. Because I was getting Hogan Rock WrestleMania 18 vibes when they were booing Cody and they were cheering Cena. And Cena has said for weeks on TV that he's here to ruin wrestling, and he's the last real champion, and he's going to retire with this championship, and WWE's going to have to create a new title. And he delivered on his promise in terms of ruining wrestling. He did everything that the audience didn't want him to do. He had a very plain, boring entrance. Even his in-ring work was very boring. Double axe handles to Cody, a poke to the eye. He didn't win with, the AA or the STFU. He won with a groin shot and a belt shot while the referee was distracted. I think it's understandable why the audience is upset that the finish went down the way it did, especially with Travis Scott's involvement, who was involved in setting up Cena's heel turn in Elimination Chamber with The Rock. Nobody, in my opinion, and I don't even want it either, nobody wants Travis Scott a part of this, okay? That the Cena heel turn recording I dropped a couple months ago, I liken Travis Scott's involvement is similar to Dennis Rodman in the NWO in the 90s as part of WCW. But Scott hasn't done anything since Chamber, and then he shows up, and he's partially responsible for Cody Rhodes losing his title and Cena getting the 17th championship and breaking Ric Flair's record. I mean, it just felt very flat to me. I think the finish, though, I'm not dying on this hill, but I wouldn't be surprised if all of that was done under Cena's ruining wrestling narrative, that it was meant for us to hate it because it was Travis Scott and there was no Rock, which, in my opinion, was a big mistake, okay? Rock set up the heel turn. He was the device to get Cena to turn, okay? They implied on television that he was going to shake things up on the road to WrestleMania, and he was nowhere to be found. And then even on this card, I thought, instead of Travis Scott, maybe Rock comes out with Travis Scott, and they're a part of this finish together, And Rock didn't show up. And I can understand the fans' frustration because it implied that Rock was going to be a part of WrestleMania as in a major role. Not a match, but in just a major role in this match. And he wasn't there. And at the time of this recording, Pat McAfee's show, Rock was on, and the question was asked why he wasn't there. And he felt that he had done his work to get the angle going with Cena, and that he didn't need to be part of WrestleMania. And and he wanted to let the spotlight be on John in his last WrestleMania match, getting 17, and Cody Rhodes. Now, if that's the truth, then good on him. He didn't want to make it about himself because last year Mania was a lot about himself, involved with Cody and Roman and all of that. But the wishy-washy, whether Rock's going to be there or he's not going to be there. I mean, last year he put out a tweet hyping up WrestleMania in Vegas saying that he's looking forward to being a part of the biggest match in the history of WrestleMania. And people like myself implied that Rock's going to be wrestling at WrestleMania, whether it's against Cody or whether it's against Roman. And he was nowhere near this. And so I was very disappointed that he didn't have a cameo in this match. I think that if Rock were in that role instead of Travis Scott and Cena won the belt, I don't think fans would be as outraged. Because I think fans' expectations were really high with Rock being the device to turn Cena and Rock not appearing at WrestleMania to follow through with that. I still think there would have been some use for him in that match, maybe even as a part of that finish. But he came on Pat McAfee's show this morning and explained why, which I don't entirely believe him. And I'm not going to sit here and die on the hill and say he's a liar, but I just have a hard time believing his reason behind that, not appearing at WrestleMania. But then acting like he drew the goddamn house, He claims he was in his living room watching the show both nights. But then implies that he was backstage when he hugged Jacob Fatu after he won the United States title. So which one is it? Did we just catch him in a lie, or is he fucking confused? I don't know. But I'm not going to get too worked up over it because too many fans have gotten too worked up over it. I'm looking forward to the narrative that Cena has delivered of ruining wrestling and leaving and retiring with the WWE Championship. Because now the narrative is we need to save the WWE Championship from John Cena before he retires. And this is almost going to be like a reverse Summer of Punk angle, where Punk was going to leave with the championship, and Cena was the one that had to prevent that from happening. So I would imagine Punk's probably going to have a match with Cena at some point at WrestleMania, or not WrestleMania, but at one of these major events in the next few months. I can't see why they wouldn't explore that. Which leads us to Monday Night Raw last night, and opened up with Cena pretty much letting everybody know there's 27 dates left that I'm going to be a part of, and I don't have to wrestle for any of them, and I'm going to appear, and I'm going to leave with this championship, and I'm going to continue ruining wrestling, and you're going to have to create a new title. And then Randy Orton comes out and RKO's Cena. You know, that rivalry that goes back decades, one last time. I'm intrigued by that. I mean, Orton got a big pop for RKOing Cena, and Orton being the first one to kind of defend the WWE. I'm digging it. And I would imagine that match is going to take place at Backlash in St. Louis, Orton's hometown. So I'll be interesting. It'll be Orton's hometown. So I'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see where they go with that. But I think with their history, and now Cena being the heel and Orton being the babyface, there's so much meat on the bone that, you know, I can't even describe to you how good that could potentially be. We saw Rusev return Monday Night Raw, which was kind of cool. I was always a big Rusev guy, and I think under this presentation, him being this monster that's just going to mow through everybody, I'm digging it. What else we got? The women's division in WWE is healthy. We saw Io Sky and Stephanie Vaquer have a match, only for Roxanne Perez and Julia to get involved. Could we see some of those girls move up to the main roster? Who knows? But, I mean, women's wrestling is very healthy in WWE these days. And I'm not mad at what I saw from those women last night. Future's bright when it comes to the women. What else do we have here? Sami Zayn returning last night and congratulating Jey Uso. But what I took from that was that moment of Sami standing behind Jey as Jey is on the second rope, yeeting with the audience, and you could even hear it in the crowd's voice. They were like, "Oh no, don't tell me he's going to do this." It was about 5 minutes of like really tense viewing on my behalf, where I'm like, "Is he going to turn on Jey? Is he jealous that Jey won the world title before him?" If that's the direction they're going in, to get to Jey and Sami for that world title, man, they're going to cook. Because their stuff in the bloodline together, their trajectory together in the bloodline, then against each other, then reuniting again. Sami being the one that was so supportive of Jey, even when the rest of the family wasn't. Man, whew, hold on to your seats. That's going to be a good one. That's going to be some good stuff. Becky Lynch turning on Lyra Valkyrie after losing the tag team shit. So they win at WrestleMania. Then they give Liv and Raquel a rematch, and then Lyra gets pinned, loses, and Becky's upset with her. And people are like, "Oh, that heel turn was rushed too soon." No, it wasn't. You know why? Because the story is that Becky came back to get back in that WrestleMania spotlight. And she was there essentially to use her friend to get to that point. And then her friend cost her the championship, and now she's upset. And she's back to square one with no title. At least that's how I've depicted this story between them. Becky is a heel. I like it. Her turning on Lyra, I like it. Targeting the Intercontinental Championship, the Women's Intercontinental Championship, I like it. Becky's a big name in women's wrestling in WWE, and I think her being attached to the Intercontinental title is only going to help. What else do we got? JD McDonough returning to help Judgment Day, and Dominic Mysterio retain over Penta. JD's going to be a device that helps turn Dominic into a babyface as a part of maybe Judgment Day dumping Dominic because his success has just become too big for them. The news of in San Diego at the Padres baseball stadium in November, that's pretty cool. I saw the commercial last night when I was watching Raw, and I was like, man. I'm like, War Games in a baseball stadium? Like, that's freaking cool. Gives me those vibes of those old Great American Bash tours in 86 and 87 when they used to run those baseball stadiums. They ran the Orange Bowl in Miami and had a War Games with, like, the Horsemen against Dusty and the Road Warriors and Nikita Koloff. Like, those matches are just... Those matches were awesome, and it just gives me that vibe. Having it in an outdoor in a baseball stadium, man, whoo! I'm looking forward to War Games. Survivor Series in a stadium for the first time. This is their push to kind of make Survivor Series irrelevant as part of their Big Four. I'm all for it. I love it. And then we ended the night with the alliance of Rollins, Heyman, and newly acquired Paul Heyman guy, Braun Breaker, dismantling CM Punk and Roman Reigns. And all I got from that was Dangerous Alliance vibes. Give me a modern-day version of the Dangerous Alliance. Get like 2 or 3 more talents in there, one of them being Becky Lynch. Give us a female wrestler that represents Paul Heyman man. Instead of a Paul Heyman girl or a Paul Heyman guy, she's a Paul Heyman man because she's the man, Becky Lynch. You like that, huh? WWE, I'll send you my address in the DMs for that check, all right, for the royalties. Anyways, I thought the ending was great. Really established Rollins as the tippy-top guy. A spot where he's been longing to be for a long time. And then you attach someone like Braun Breaker, who's got the potential to be a stalwart and a major player for them moving forward. Whew, man. Leveling Roman Reigns and Punk. The rumor is Backlash. That's going to be a tag match. Who knows? We'll see. But easily the best Raw after WrestleMania in the last decade. Okay? I thought that they killed it with returns, debuts. They reshifted some of the stories. Yeah, I just thought that the Raw after Mania, in my opinion, was better than WrestleMania Night 1. And WrestleMania Night 1 had a killer main event. If you took WrestleMania Night 1's main event with WrestleMania's undercard from Night 2, you would have had a classic WrestleMania, which begs the question, is going 2 nights beneficial for the WrestleMania brand? See, I love the 2-night format. I've been married to it for a few years now, okay? It's Christmas Eve and Christmas, all right? And a lot of people celebrate Christmas Eve over Christmas and vice versa, okay? I think that this could be, I think this year's card was shuffled around and reshifted because of Kevin Owens' injury as well as The Rock, whether he was in or out, okay? And I think that reflected on what we saw both nights, okay? With the underwhelming energy from Night 1 and then a complete 180 when it came to the audience on Night 2. But I don't think going back to a one-night format is the right idea. Fans were like, oh, WrestleMania should be one night again. You know, there's guys that didn't deserve to be on the card, et cetera, et cetera. Like, WrestleMania is Super Bowl. You put the best of the best out there, but at the same time, you also want to recognize those that have worked hard and get them a spot in the card. I'm still a big proponent of putting the Andre the Giant Battle Royal on the card to get everybody on there. I think that if you added some stakes and prestige to it, it could work. As far as the girls go, you know, having more girls matches with some meaning behind them, not just being title matches. Like Chelsea Green left off the card, I thought was a travesty considering what she's been doing with the Women's United States Championship. The SmackDown Tag Team division not having a spot in the card, I thought that was a travesty. There were some head scratchers for this WrestleMania, and if I were to compare this WrestleMania to others, this has got WrestleMania 2000 vibes for me, okay? The build-up was unbelievable for that WrestleMania with all the matches on that card, but it just seemed very underwhelming. It didn't deliver, and especially the main event being a very disappointment. That fatal 4-way, you can harken that back to Cody and Cena, and that being a main event that disappointed fans. It wasn't the best match, but I think that there's some truth to the idea that Cena and his ruined wrestling narrative, it was meant for us to hate this match. It really was. But overall, fun WrestleMania weekend. It's the one time of year where fans can rejoice and celebrate their fandom. And I look forward to what takes place in New Orleans next year. I'm not going to sit here and pull out any predictions of Hall of Fame or what's going to take place match-wise, but WrestleMania is a spectacle once a year that fans can look forward to, and I look forward to 365 days away from the next WrestleMania. So, let's get into our spring Stampede recap here as voted by you in the polls over on social media. April 16th, 2000, Chicago, Illinois, the United Center. This show was the reset or the reboot of WCW under the creative direction of Eric Bischoff and Vince Russo. And the main focal point of that storyline was the New Blood and the Millionaires Club. Bischoff and Russo had come on board on screen together as the bosses of WCW, if you will, to shake things up. And they had decided that the established talents like Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, Sting, Lex Luger, Diamond Dallas Page, just to name a few, those guys, it was time for them to be put out to pasture. And the new blood, the new talents in WCW, it was their turn to get a spotlight. So guys like Billy Kidman, Shane Douglas, Booker T, Vampiro, Scott Steiner, Jeff Jarrett, names like that. Those were the names that they were focusing on. And they had a reboot on the April 10th episode of Monday Nitro where they kind of set things in motion to get you set up for this pay-per-view where all championships had been vacated. They were gonna start fresh, and they were going to have tournaments that they were going to determine new champions by the end of the evening. Now, I'll be honest with you. This show goes 2 hours and 38 minutes, and they crammed a lot of stuff. 14 matches into this pay-per-view. Most of them tournament matches, if not all of them. Let's start with the video package opening the show, covering Russo and Bischoff's return on Nitro and all the chaos that it caused, leading to the formation of the New Blood versus Millionaires Club storyline. I thought potentially this was a good storyline with the right players and the right execution, but in hindsight, it was executed poorly. We cut to Eric Bischoff, Vince Russo, and Billy Kidman with Torrie Wilson backstage, and Eric's worried that Hogan will be returning tonight, stemming from the Hummer, the white Hummer angle that they had concluded on that episode of Nitro where Bischoff drove the Hummer into Hogan's limo. Kidman doesn't seem to be worried. He says they're going to fire up the Hummer and finish the job that they started on Nitro, as Russo reassures Bischoff that there's nothing to be worried about. Open the show, we got Tony Schiavone, Mark Madden, and Scott Hudson, and they detail what's in store for this event. All new champs will be crowned in individual tournaments. They also share that WCW officials have waived the no disqualification rules. They said they're going to be lax on making calls. They're going to let things fly with the wrestlers. To me, this sounds like this was their answer to the format that ECW had adopted and what made them popular over the years, where there pretty much were no rules. All right, let's get into the matches here. First round match, WCW World Tag Team Title Tournament, team package of Ric Flair and Lex Luger taking on the Mamalukes. Before the match, team package is backstage, and Ric Flair goes off in his promo about it's street fight rules, and he's going to wear his really nice business casual clothing to wrestle in. I don't know if he lost his bag or if it was just it was something to change his character up, but I thought it was kind of silly. Russo comes out before the match to kick things off, and he adds the Harris twins to the match because he wants to even the playing field against the two veterans in team package. So it's a 4-on-2 tag team tournament match, which confused me. So do both teams, the Harris boys and the Mamalukes, do they advance in the tournament? Are they a package team, if you will? Both teams start things off working on Flair and Luger. The biggest pop of this match saw Miss Elizabeth deck the Disco Inferno, who was at ringside representing the Mamalukes. This match was pretty much a clusterfuck, if you ask me. It was very confusing. Eventually, the Mamalukes and the Harris boys, they can't work together, and they start going at it as Luger gets the not-so-hot tag and starts to clean house. The finish comes when Luger puts Johnny the Bull in the torture rack for the win and to advance into the WCW Tag Team Title Tournament. The crowd was very happy this match ended, by the way, judging by their excitement over Luger's torture rack. I don't think that they were excited to see him put the rack on. I think they knew that was the end of the match, and they popped for it because they didn't really They didn't really pop for anything else aside from Elizabeth Slap and Disco. This match went 6 minutes and 11 seconds. Mean Gene's backstage with Mike Awesome to discuss his match in the U.S. title tournament when Bam Bam Bigelow interrupts him, talking trash, and then Mike Awesome attacks him from behind. We then get a video package for Mancow versus the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart. Mancow's a local Chicago radio host. He's the Midwest version of Howard Stern. Shock Jock radio, but I guess less raunchy. You can skip over this match. It's not anything worth recapping. Perfect snack, bathroom break, but if you want to know how much time you have till the next match, it's 2 minutes and 48 seconds with Mancow getting the win. After the match, Billy Kidman shows up to attack Jimmy Hart, who is a known protege to Hulk Hogan, to send Hogan a message not to show up to the pay-per-view. As Kidman is beating on Jimmy Hart, the crowd chants for Hogan. Backstage, Russo blows his stack at both the Harris Twins and the Mamalukes, threatening their jobs if they don't get things right. Next up, match number 3, first round WCW United States title tournament match, as The Wall takes on Big Papa Pump Scott Steiner. Now, for the previous few months on television, they had built up The Wall as this monster threat, mowing through the whole roster. But this match was really about reestablishing Scott Steiner, who had been out of action for quite some time. Solid big man match overall, with power moves from The Wall, Steiner's signature suplexes, etc. Nothing out of the norm that would look out of place from these two. The Wall grabs the table on the outside because there are no rules to put Steiner through the table, but the referee gets the choke slam instead as Steiner threw him in the way. Another referee entered and disqualifies The Wall, giving the victory to Big Papa Pump. You know what? Thought that was a lazy finish. So, again, with these no rules or being lax on the rules or deciding what they want to implement as rules, there are no rules until they want to implement them at their convenience. I don't know. I guess, whatever. This match goes 3 minutes, 53 seconds. Backstage, the Cat Ernest Miller is with Mean Gene Okerlund, who's scheduled to face Mike Awesome in the United States title tournament, but he's attacked by Bam Bam Bigelow. Okay. Which leads us to our next match, the 4th match on the card. Mike Awesome versus Bam Bam Bigelow, because apparently you can just insert yourself into the tournament match now that the original participant is not available. We see a video clip of Awesome's debut on Nitro earlier that week, advertised as the current ECW champion, by the way. For those of you that are curious, Mike Awesome was the ECW champion when he debuted on Monday Nitro, and he signed a contract with WCW because he was not under one with ECW. And then he was forced to appear at an ECW show and face Taz, who was at that time contracted with the World Wrestling Federation, former ECW World Champion. Taz would pick up the victory and beat Mike Awesome, which was the first time that a WWF contracted wrestler wrestled a WCW contracted wrestler in an ECW event. It was pretty groundbreaking for the Monday Night Wars at that time. Bam Bam Bigelow arrives. He jumps on Awesome, and the bell rings. Awesome displays a lot of his high-risk maneuvers. Top rope planchas, running crossbodies over the guardrail. Madden had a good phrase for Awesome style. He phrased it cruiserweight style with heavyweight power. I like that. That perfectly sums up Mike Awesome. Bigelow signals for his finish, but Ernest Miller enters, takes out Bam Bam Bigelow. Then he grabs the microphone, trash talks the crowd, and says he's going to dance. Mike Awesome comes to his feet, lays Miller out with a clothesline, which leads to an awesome top rope splash off the top rope for the win. So, let me get this straight. So Miller eats the pin in a match he was originally booked for, but later replaced in. Very dusty finish-like. So what would happen if Bam Bam Bigelow ate the pin? Would Awesome still advance? Does the win not count? Okay. This match goes at an even 4 minutes. Backstage, Bischoff and Russo are in their dressing room. Eric is still worried that Hogan shows up to the pay-per-view. We get Buff Bagwell and Shane Douglas backstage with Mean Gene getting ready for the tag team tournament match against Harlem Heat 2000. We get a worked style shoot promo from Shane Douglas towards Ric Flair. Douglas came back on that Nitro earlier in the week, and he had targeted Ric Flair stemming from some heat that Douglas had with Flair. Behind the scenes, many, many years prior, they had kind of developed that into this storyline and intertwined it with the New Blood Millionaires Club stuff. The promo is nothing to write home about. It's not anything Spectacular. Match number 5, first round WCW Tag Team Title Tournament. Buff Bagwell and the franchise Shane Douglas against Harlem Heat 2000. Don't expect this match to be anything special, okay? With an out-of-shape Ahmed Johnson, your chances of a 5-star classic are dead and gone, okay? This match is clearly designed to set up the finals with Flair and Douglas meeting on opposite teams, further building their rivalry that they started on Nitro earlier in the week. We had an underwhelming finish. Douglas delivers a vertical suplex to Stevie Ray for the win. Post-match, Harlem Heat 2000 seemed to be having issues with each other, teasing a breakup. Good, because they had no business being a team. It was horrendous. And to use the Harlem Heat name was even worse. A disrespect to Booker and Stevie, the original Harlem Heat. This match went 2 minutes and 41 seconds too long. Mean Gene's backstage with Booker T. I guess he got his T back because if you guys are keeping score, Booker T was he had lost the rights to the Harlem Heat brand and the name, and he lost the rights to T, part of his last name. Don't know how that works legally, but whatever. So he got it back. And he's facing Sting in a United States Championship tournament match. Booker says he's a new blood guy and he's all about opportunity, but he doesn't see eye to eye with Bischoff. But he can't worry about that because he's focused on Sting. Which leads us to our 6th match. First round WCW title tournament match. Booker T versus Sting. Easily, so far, the best match of the night. It was too short because they tried to, this whole show, they tried to cram too much shit in. But it displayed some semblance of a wrestling contest between the two. Good back and forth between them with both getting their signature stuff in. I would have loved to have seen a more detailed, significant rivalry between these two during this time period. They were starting to elevate Booker. And I thought the chemistry with Sting, the matches that they had, and even this match was pretty good. The finish comes when Booker goes to suplex Sting, but Sting counters, goes for a Scorpion Death Drop for the win to advance into the tournament. Post-match, Booker T grabs Sting and directs him back into the ring, which leads to him sticking his hand out to shake his hand and show him a sign of respect. This match went 6 minutes and 34 seconds. This is a match they could have dedicated a little bit more time to, but they were kind of going with the first round matchups having a 10-minute time limit. So I guess under that time limit, it was the time that they went with was good enough. I don't know. One thing I noticed as I was watching this, and I didn't recall watching this at 17 years old when I ordered this, because this was an impulse order on pay-per-view. I used to like to record a lot of Raws and Nitros, and this was the era when I started recording Nitro and the Russo Bischoff Millionaires Club New Blood storyline. I didn't want to experience FOMO without knowing what FOMO was back 25 years ago, because I thought that with Russo and Bischoff at the helm that there was potential for them to redirect the ship and make WCW programming worth watching again. So I wanted to have it documented on those lovely VHS tapes that I had begged, borrowed, and stole from my parents, and would eventually buy once I got a job and an allowance and shit like that. But the one thing I noticed now that I didn't really notice back then 17 years ago when I impulse bought this pay-per-view was I didn't like how they didn't show any graphics of the tournament brackets to let the audience know who would face each other, who moved on to the next round, kind of keeping score. They just kept throwing the matches out there. So I wonder what the live crowd felt watching it in the arena, and if they were trying to figure out who was who and who was facing who and so on and so forth. But it would have been nice if they had graphics and they kind of kept you up to date with the tournament. Backstage, Mean Gene is with Billy Kidman, Tori Wilson, and Eric Bischoff. Gene stirs the pot as he mentions Hogan's rumored arrival. Bischoff won't let that rumor get to him, though, as Kidman, once again, shares that he's not worried about Hogan showing up. Which leads us to our next match, our 7th match. First round WCW United States title tournament, Kidman versus Vampiro. Now, as talented as these two are, and as good as chemistry they've had in their matches prior, fans were waiting for Hogan's arrival, and they got it. Big pop for his arrival. Chicago crowd helped make this segment somewhat interesting with their enthusiasm. Mark Madden slips in that little dig that Hogan was only there to receive his pay-per-view bonus, which was rumored to be at the time north of $600,000. Imagine making $600,000 for a pay-per-view bonus, let alone all the other money you were making. If you Google Hulk Hogan's WCW contract, it's out there. Man, he I wouldn't say he stole money from them, but he made out. He made out good. And that's all I'm going to say. Anyways, Hogan destroys Kidman all over the ringside area, power bombs him through the announce table. Then he rolls him back into the ring and forces the referee to count the pin as Vampiro advances into the tournament. Post-match, he goes backstage, he stalks Bischoff, ends up getting into his dressing room. Russo shows up with a bunch of rent-a-cops, and they pull their guns out on Hogan as if he robbed a bank. This was wild. Even the crowd was kind of like, whoa. Like, really? This is how far we're going? We're gonna pull guns out? I mean, I know that Brian Pillman a couple of years prior had that, Pillman's got a gun angle when Austin broke into his house in 96, but, I mean, I thought we were past that at that point. Even I thought, at 17 years old, it's like, all right, this is a little bit ridiculous here. A little bit ridiculous. And even some of those rent-a-cops, they didn't even have badges on. Like, if you're going to portray a police officer, at least put in the effort at the Halloween costume store, Come on. The announcers, they lose their mind over this. I mean, Schiavone, Madden, Scott Hudson, they're like, oh my God, like they had never seen this before. And at that time on WCW programming, you didn't. And despite all that, despite the shenanigans, despite the over-the-top nature of this segment, the crowd was into it. The crowd was into it. Chanting Hogan, and it was bizarre. It was definitely bizarre. As Hogan is being escorted by the police officers, I don't even know if they handcuffed him, Hogan threatens to eat Bischoff's ass alive. So I guess Terry Jack Brother Dude is an ass-eating machine. Just ask his two ex-wives and maybe his current one. By the way, Vampiro advances in the tournament, and the match went 8 minutes, 28 seconds. And after all the commotion of Hogan getting arrested, we see Terry Funk making his way through the backstage area, and Terry Taylor informs him that the next match for the WCW Hardcore Championship is against Screamin' Norman Smiley, and Norman is hiding in catering, right next to the bag of Doritos, which I thought that was a weird little factoid there. Funk enters catering, where everyone tells him that Norman's hiding in the bathroom. Funk enters the bathroom. We hear Norman screaming on the commode, and the fight is on. Match number 8, Terry Funk, Screaming Norman Smiley, vacant hardcore title. A fun hardcore match for this time period. I mean, this was during the era of like the Crash Holly 24/7 hardcore title matches that were very popular. All kinds of plunder. Funk uses everything in sight from catering to beat on Norman, who's wearing a Chicago Cubs uniform and catcher's gear. I thought that was kind of neat. Norman gets his shots in with all the available plunder at his disposal. At one point, and this was funny, I got a chuckle out of this because at that time, I was 17 years old. I was working in a restaurant. I was a busboy, prep cook, dishwasher, kind of did a little bit of everything. Norman lays Funk onto a dishwasher prep area and uses the hose that you wash the dishes with to hose down Terry Funk. That got a chuckle out of me because I know all too well about prepping vegetables and food in the dishwashing sink area and using that hose. So I thought that was kind of funny. They eventually make their way out of catering through the backstage area with more plunder to use on each other. Norman takes a shot to the head from Terry Funk with a laptop. That sounded like it hurt. I'll say that. Then Norman tries to run and climb up a ladder. He eventually is hanging from the plumbing in the ceiling area, but gets nailed with a chair, falls to a table. The action eventually spills out into the arena and in the ring as Norman wears out Funk with some vicious chair shots. He was laying him in pretty good. The Big Wiggle gets a big pop, but Norman gets nailed in the head with a chair by Terry Funk. Then Funk grabs a ladder, brings it into the ring until Dustin Rhodes shows up to go after Funk because they had a pre-existing rivalry prior to this reboot, if you will, by Russo and Bischoff. Chair shots from Dustin to Funk, followed by a pile driver on a steel chair as Norman is still laid out. Dustin takes the chair to the middle turnbuckle, attempts to nail Funk, who blocks it, and then sends Dustin into the ladder that seesaws into Norman outside to the floor. Funk then makes his way outside to the floor to go for the cover and the win. Fun little match. Like I said, fit for the time period in wrestling. Terry Funk is your new hardcore champion. Not exactly the new blood narrative that Bischoff and Russo were looking for when it came to their title holders. The match went 8 minutes, 2 seconds. And we see Russo backstage giving Booker T a hard time about showing Sting some respect, tells him not to piss off Eric Bischoff, and that he will keep this little potato thing between them, and then orders him to come with him. As we get to our 9th match, second round WCW United States title tournament match, Mike Awesome and Big Papa Pump Scott Steiner. For the time that it was allotted, it went 3 minutes and 14 seconds. It was a decent, hard-hitting match between these two. But the crowd was more into Kevin Nash's arrival as he nailed Awesome with a crutch that sends him off the top rope, leading to a Steiner recliner from Big Papa Pump for the win and to advance to the finals of the WCW United States title tournament match. I would have liked a little more out of these two. For the 3 minutes and 14 seconds, they were hard-hitting with Steiner's suplexes and Awesome's power moves. I mean, I mean, give me a little more, you know? Like, this is why I think that maybe they shouldn't have crammed 14 matches onto this fucking pay-per-view. Russo's backstage. He's berating Dustin Rhodes for costing the New Blood the hardcore title. Then he throws a Gold Dust reference out there because, of course, we got to break the fourth wall. This is Vince Russo we're talking about here. Takes credit for that success because Dustin on his own is nothing without that character. Then he fires him, tells him he's done in WCW, as Booker T is there playing middleman trying to keep the peace. So, Dustin Rhodes fired. Big fucking deal. Our 10th match. Second round, WCW United States title tournament. Sting versus Vampiro. Now, prior to this reboot by Bischoff and Russo, Sting and Vampiro had a short-lived alliance on TV for a few weeks prior. Literally a few weeks. Wasn't like they'd been blood brothers for forever. The announcers acted like they'd been together for years, when that really wasn't the case. Vampiro turned on Sting on the previous Nitro to join the New Blood. Commentary acts like it was some sort of blood rivalry with the Brothers in Paint, which it isn't. And they're now facing each other in this title tournament match, U.S. title tournament match. As much as I wanted to see this rivalry benefit Vampiro, this match could have been saved for a later date, to be honest with you. The story of Sting being the only member of the Millionaires Club in this tournament was a nice attempt to get him some sympathy throughout each match in the tournament. But the chemistry didn't seem to be there between these two. No fluidity, no rhyme or reason for anything they're doing in the match. Maybe that's why this rivalry just didn't click with fans. I don't know. I held out hope, but for some reason it just didn't click. At 17 years old, I was digging the match. But at 42, 25 years later, we're seeing my wrestling viewing habits mature as I didn't really care for this match at all. The finish comes when Sting drops Vampiro with a Scorpion Death Drop, followed by a Scorpion Death Lock for the win. Crowd pop for the finish, maybe because the rest of the match was kind of mid. I don't know. By the way, the match went 5 minutes, 59 seconds. See a pattern here? Very quick matches to push through this show because we got to cram all this shit in. Our 11th match. I'm sorry, no. We go to Mean Gene with Diamond Dallas Page and Kimberly to discuss the WCW World Heavyweight Championship match against Jeff Jarrett. Page vows for revenge on his wife, Kimberly, after Jeff Jarrett nailed her with the guitar on Nitro last week. Standard promo from Page. Nothing special. Bada bing, bada boom, bada bang. Now we got our 11th match. A 6-man Cruiserweight Championship match. We got Chris Candido, Lash LaRue, Crowbar, the artist formerly known as Prince Iaukea, Shannon Moore, and Juventud Guerrera. For the 5 minutes, 12 seconds this match went, it was a car crash. And it was a lame attempt from WCW to revive the popular Cruiserweight concept. Anyone can tag in to enter the match. At this point, crowd started to show they were burnt out. Nobody cared about this match. The action would eventually get out of hand. All 6 men would brawl around the ringside area. It was kind of hard to keep up with. And this match definitely felt rushed. Everyone get their high spots in on each other to the outside. But the finish comes when the artist goes up to the second rope and Tammy Lynn Sitch, formerly known as Sunny, grabs the artist, throws him off the second rope, and Candido covers him for the win. And he's the new WCW Cruiserweight Champion. Again, the match felt rushed. Nobody cared except the announcers pretending to care. Post-match, we saw a catfight with the ladies as the other men try breaking it up. Mean Gene is backstage with Jeff Jarrett discussing his upcoming WCW Championship match against DDP. This is a generic Jeff Jarrett promo during this time period. He calls Gene a Jarrettall slap ass and keeps it moving. You ain't missing much with this one, folks. We get to our 12th match on the card. It's the finals of the WCW World Tag Team Title Tournament. Team Package consisting of Ric Flair and Lex Luger taking on Buff Bagwell and the franchise Shane Douglas. Flair, he's back in his golf slacks. Announcers once again explain why Flair is wearing street clothes, as if anyone gave a shit at this point. Russo shows up on commentary for this match, hyping up his on-screen issues with Flair and the issues Flair and Douglas have had behind the scenes the last few years. Another match on this card that is very, very forgettable. This show is more of an angle than it's about matches on display, with the New Blood versus the Millionaires Club. And as I've watched this continuously, I felt that this was an extended episode of Nitro with zero commercials. At one point during the match, Tony Schiavone and Mark Madden are arguing, and Tony Schiavone yells, "Bullshit!" Which kind of got me to chuckle a little bit. The finish comes when Russo pulls Nick Patrick out of the ring as he was counting down Douglas. Then, out of nowhere, Bryan Adams and Brian Clark, known as Chronic, interfere, delivering a double choke slam to Lex Luger. Russo then grabs Nick Patrick, puts on his referee shirt to count the pin to help Buff and the franchise win the finals of the WCW World Tag Team Title Tournament to become new WCW World Tag Team Champions. This match went 8 minutes and 29 seconds too long. We got Mean Gene with Big Papa Pump Scott Steiner, who says, "Sting's ass is mine." Hey now, big boy. Which leads us to the finals of the WCW United States title tournament at match number 13 on this card, Scott Steiner versus Sting. Sting's backstage with Mean Gene, who says the New Blood has got a war with him, and Steiner is the next casualty. It's showtime, folks. Good chemistry between these two historically, because this match is cluttered in with 12 matches prior. The crowd's burnt out. Very little time is given to this match. It really won't mean much, and the match actually kind of suffered because of that. This benefits from being a smaller card with more time and effort given. Not that the talent didn't give an effort, but they were very limited with time. The only thing consistent about this show was the thread of Sting being the only member of the Millionaires Club in this United States title tournament. One of the very few consistencies of this show. Crowd didn't really seem to be into this match. Like I said, they're getting burnt out. We can tell. Steiner tries his hardest to get some decent heat as he starts jaw-jacking with the crowd, but it's not really translating very well, in my opinion. The finish comes when Vampiro climbs from under the ring through the mat and pulls Sting down to the depths of hell. He's dragged out of the hole with blood on his face and put in the Steiner recliner for the win. New WCW United States Champion, Big Papa Bump, Scott Steiner, with the match going at 5 minutes and 33 seconds. We get a video package highlighting Eric Bischoff and Vince Russo setting up the mini tournament to determine a new WCW World Heavyweight Champion on the previous week's Nitro, which leads us to our final match of the evening. Match number 14, the finals of the WCW World Heavyweight Championship Tournament. It's Jeff Jarrett, the chosen one, against Diamond Dallas Page with Kimberly. This match went the longest on the card at 15 minutes and 2 seconds, and despite the finish, it resembled a structured wrestling match for once. The match would spill out into the crowd for an extended period of time, which was actually a first on this pay-per-view. I expected a lot more of these matches to go into the crowd. You had the hardcore match that was in the backstage area and made its way to the ring, but the only time that a match on this card went in the crowd was when Mike Awesome delivered a running cross-body plancha over the guardrail to Bam Bam Bigelow, but the match eventually made it quickly back into the ring. Page and Jarrett had a significant amount of time outside the ring through the crowd, which the crowd seemed to be into. Despite the rules being lax, as it was presented to us by the announcers, the referee, Charles Robinson, would grab a chair from Double J after he's already nailed Page with it about 4 times. No consistency with the rules on this show. Once again, there's rules, there's no rules. I decide I want to make rules for this. I decide I want to let this go. It was chaotic, and it didn't translate very well. Bischoff would make his way down to ringside to catch a closer view of the action as Page and Jarrett begin to fight up the aisle. Jarrett would then grab Diamond Dallas Page's hardcover book from a fan at ringside and rip it up, and the announcers acted like Jarrett had desecrated a family heirloom. I mean, come on. It was silly. It was a book, for Christ's sakes. Page goes for the diamond cutter, but Jarrett holds the ropes and pokes referee Charles Robinson in the eye. Jarrett then grabs the world title, nails Page with it. Referee goes for the cover, but Page kicks out at 2. Bischoff is getting a closer look towards the ringside area as Jeff Jarrett locks in the figure 4. Then, camera cuts to Kimberly, who grabs Jarrett's guitar as DDP attempts to reverse the figure 4, but Jarrett has it locked in. Paige continues to fight and eventually gets to the ropes as Jarrett goes for the figure four again, but Paige would cradle him into a pinfall for a 2 count. Paige then nails Jeff Jarrett with a modified rock bottom for a 2 count as the announcers continue to focus on Kimberly with the guitar and Bischoff at ringside. Jarrett locks in a sleeper hold, but Paige fights back. As Bischoff gets on the apron, Paige counters the sleeper. Bischoff distracts the referee, and Paige gives Jarrett a diamond cutter, and the announcers are wondering, is Bischoff now helping Paige? What's going on here? But Kimberly enters the ring, and as we think she's going to nail Jeff Jarrett in the head with a guitar, kaboom! She nails her husband, Diamond Dallas Page, followed by Jeff Jarrett delivering his signature finishing move, the stroke, for the win. And new WCW World Heavyweight Champion, the chosen one, Jeff Jarrett. Eric Bischoff and Kimberly embrace as members of the New Blood come out to celebrate and close this pay-per-view. Overall, this show was all over the place. It wasn't very structured. It would have been nice if they had graphics to help the viewers keep track of the tournament brackets, and if they scaled down the amount of matches, this show might have been received better. You know, I mean, if they did tournament finals on this show, maybe if they had the tournament take place on Nitro and Thunder leading up to the pay-per-view, and you had each championship, the tournament finals took place, and then maybe some undercard matches of some of the angles and storylines that had developed in this reboot, this show might have been received better. If you did the finals of the U.S. tournament, the finals of the heavyweight tournament, the finals of the tag team title tournament, the hardcore title, the cruiserweight title, that's 5 matches right there. You add maybe 2 or 3 more undercard matches of stories that were developed on this reboot of Nitro and Thunder throughout the week. This show might have been a solid 7 or 8 out of 10. At 17 years old, though, I did think this was a solid outing. I thought the attempt at resetting and rebooting things was interesting. But at 42 years old, watching this back earlier today for this recap, this was a fucking mess. This really was. If you're into this sort of stuff, if you're into the Vince Russo style of booking, go back and watch this show. It's 2 hours and 38 minutes, 14 matches crammed in. Take some notes because you're going to be trying to figure out the landscape, who's who and what's what, and et cetera, et cetera. And that about does it for this episode of Kicking Out at 2. Thank you very much for tuning in, press and play. Thank you for your patience. I apologize for last week. I really wanted to recap WrestleMania 6 and also give you my WrestleMania 41 predictions, which, by the way, over 2 nights I went 8-6, so it wasn't too bad. Our next episode, hopefully the polls are going to determine what that is, because we have WCW Slamboree 2000, we have ECW's Hardcore Heaven, and we have WWF Judgment Day 2000 in the polls up on social media for you. So hit up our Twitter, our Facebook, and you decide what show we're going to recap for all of you. And with that being said, I think it's about that time that we officially put this one down for the 3 count, and we will see you all next time.